He was asking his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." The church is at a critical point in its history. We are at a four-way intersection. We can turn to the left, or we can turn to the right. We can move forward, or we can move backward. We are living in a unique time when two generations have said that the church, as it has been, is not for them. And when they look to the left, they decide that they can't venture into the commercialized plastic church that they see on TV. And when they look to the left, to the institutional, traditional church, as it has been in recent times, they feel the same way. And whether we want to admit it or not, people are looking for something new. They're looking for something fresh. They're looking for something that is living. A third way to experience God. Two generations are looking for church where faith is actually lived out. They are looking for church to be meaningful and a real part of life, not something that just happens for a few hours a week. They're looking for something that is life-giving and life-changing. So, over the next several weeks, we will talk about Jesus. We will talk about Jesus, the real Jesus, as found in the Bible. We're not going to talk about the traditional Jesus or that make-believe Jesus that we have in our minds from the Bible stories. Well, we're not even going to talk about that comfortable Jesus that everyone wants to hug and kiss and all of those things. We're going to talk about the Jesus that shows up in the Scriptures. We will look at Jesus as clear as we can, and we will see Him as the Alpha and the Omega. Hopefully, we'll be able to see Him in this third way that these two generations that have disregarded church, maybe we'll find the one that they're seeking. Maybe we will find a way where we don't sit in church buildings anymore, where we don't see 20-somethings. But maybe we'll see a lot of them. Maybe we can be a church where young people are attracted to Christ. So our hope is to become Christ-centered. And if we refuse to become Christ-centered, and we remain to be church-centered or religion-centered, then our only movement can be backward. You know, in times past, the church has had difficulty dealing with the humanity of Jesus, and we overcame that barrier. But in doing that, we seem to have lost the reality of the divinity of Jesus, the reality and the experience that Christ, the Son of God, the one who was the Word, the one who is eternal, the one who is God, actually lives in us. Jesus Christ is far beyond what we could ever imagine. His greatness, His beauty, His glory and splendor are unknown to most Christians today. That's why we need to take a fresh look at Him. That's why we need to study Jesus. That's why it's so important. Simply put, to faithfully represent Jesus in our time requires a representing of Him. That's why we'll talk about Him over the next few weeks. You know, I think that if people will catch a hold of the vision of the real Jesus, the Jesus who is Lord, the Jesus who is Savior, they'll find the confidence that they need to live life. And I hope that this new vision will help you move forward rather than to the left or the right or backwards. I hope that it will lead you to explore the this one who is the Son of God, and that you'll take Christ as your all in all. The Bible will serve as our roadmap and our compass. That's one of the great pleas of the Restoration Movement, that we would use the Bible and the Bible only as a rule of faith and practice, that we would do Bible things in Bible ways, call Bible things by Bible names, speak where the Scriptures speak, and remain silent when the Scriptures are silent. So the Bible will be our roadmap toward this person, Jesus, and all of his riches and all of his depths. So we'll take a journey in these series of talks. They will serve as a means to an end, and that end is Christ himself. Jesus is the divine tuning fork. He's God's perfect pitch to the eternal. Every tuning fork, something has to happen to it in order for it to be heard. It has to be struck. The striking of the eternal, unchanging tuning fork of heaven took place when a young virgin gave birth to God's only Son in an obscure village in first century Israel. It struck again on a never-forgotten Friday with the pounding of 6-inch nails. The fork struck a third time on the third day when a meek and lowly Nazarene split a tomb wide open and came forth in resurrection life. Heaven's tuning fork continues to strike today. And when we can't hear it, or when we refuse to hear it, we lose our way. And in the process, we lose entire generations. The male twin of the Taylor family, on his way out last week, Matthew, said, "I felt so sad today." He said, "You had a great sermon. I love your sermons. But I looked around and I was the only person here who was in his 20s. You know, the church, and preachers in particular, have made the gospel about so many things other than Christ. We try programs, and we try strategies, and we try gimmicks in an effort to fill church buildings. We build bigger buildings, more comfortable, more expensive. We have good technology, and we hope that that will draw people in. We try this plan and that program, hoping that people will be drawn into these things that we call our sanctuaries. And all the while, we fail to present the real drawing power of God. Jesus Christ is the pole that brings everything together and gives it meaning. He said, "And if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself." Without him, everything else loses its value. That includes your life. If our buildings are full of people who do not have Christ, then we failed as a church. If we fill up every seat in this room, and we fill up the crying room, and we have people sitting in the hallway, it means absolutely nothing if those people are not wholly committed followers to Christ. The traditional institutionalized church has been really good at emphasizing a spiritual truth or an important value or godly virtues. Really good at that. But it's also been very good at missing Christ in the process, who is himself. He is the embodiment and the incarnation of all of those truths, of all of those values, of all of those virtues. He's all of those things become flesh. And when we learn to see Christ, and we learn to embrace Christ and know Christ, then we will have touched him who is life. In him reside all truth, values, virtues, gifts in vibrant high definition. Beauty has its meaning in him. Everything that is lovely and lovable in us is a result and as a gift from him. You know, think about those things that you find most beautiful. For some, they're beaches, others mountains, you know, winter night sky, new life, sprouting in springtime. Think of the beauty in nature, and music, and art. Those things that just captivate us in life. All of those things are pointing to Jesus Christ because He is the essence of true beauty. So what is Christianity? It is Christ. Nothing more, nothing less. It has always been and always will be about Him. He is the center. He is the circumference. And He's everything inside and outside the circle. It's always, and always should be, all about Him. Christianity is not an ideology. It is not a philosophy. It is not a new kind of morality or social ethic or worldview. It is the good news that beauty, truth, and goodness are found in a person. True humanity and community are based on and experienced by connection to that one person. And that person is the only begotten Son of the living God, Jesus Christ. You know, for years we've looked at conversion as a change of direction. That a person who is in their sin and lost are headed in the direction of hell. And when they are converted, they change direction toward heaven. It is more than a change of direction. When you're converted to Christ, there's more than a change of direction that takes place. There's also a change in connection that takes place. The Bible uses the Hebrew word for repent that implies not viewing God from a distance anymore, but entering into a relationship where God is the center of human connection. It's more than just going to church. It's about a living, loving relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what conversion is. It's more than just an escape from hell. It is a lifestyle. We are living sacrifices. It matters what we do, how we live, how we treat people, how we act, the example that we set outside of this church building. This is where this massive disconnect in the church comes in today. We've lost sight of the truth that Jesus is more than just a good idea, but He is the living Lord. Lord in the Greek language is kurios. That is the word for Lord. It means first one, the one above everything else, the one who is in control of everything. When you stand in the front of a church building and you say, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, before your baptism, in saying that He is Christ, you're saying He is prophet, priest, and king in your life. That He has the right to rule and reign in your life, not only when you're in Sunday school, not only when you're in church, not only when you're in Bible school, but when you're coaching a ball game. Or when you're going to work, or when you're going to school, or when you're going to the grocery store. He's King. The message of Jesus has been replaced in the church with the language of morality and psychology and values and leadership principles. The world likes Jesus, it just doesn't like the church. But it's becoming more evident that the church likes the church, but it doesn't like Jesus. And there's something wrong when it's easier for some Christians to think of the world without Christ than it is for them to think of the world without the Beatles or Bach or Beethoven or Beyonce. When we dethrone Jesus Christ from his rightful place, we very soon lose Christianity. When he's no longer Lord, we've lost the faith. So the urgency is to decide how we're going to answer one question. Jesus asked his disciples that question in Matthew chapter 16, and the question is this: who do you say that I am? It's a question posed to every generation, and every generation has to answer it for itself. Who do you say Jesus is? The historic creeds are an expression of the need to answer Jesus' "who do you say that I am?" question. Each generation in every culture has to answer that question for itself. And if you get that answer wrong, everything else goes wrong with it. Because Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of all things. Every move of God and restoration in the church has been a rediscovery of some aspect of answering that question. In every great awakening in the history of the church, there has been, number one, a rediscovery of the living Word, or the Scriptures and its authority. Number two, a rediscovery of the living Christ and his supremacy. Number three, a discovery of the living Spirit and his power to manifest Christ in the context of that culture. God has a history of taking people seriously who take him seriously. Jesus himself said that when he is lifted up, he'll draw all people to himself. But because we don't trust Jesus to do what he says he will do, or we believe who he says he is, or we've not caught a glimpse of his infinite glory, we sit and we talk about programs and events and methods that hope will bring people to church. But church isn't about church. Church is about Jesus Christ. He couldn't have been clearer. The only begotten Son of God is the draw. Our mission is to lift him up in the context of our culture, in the context of our community, in a way that they can understand and appreciate it. And when this happens, the rest will take care of itself. Before his ascension, Jesus quizzed Peter with one ultimate question. He didn't say, Peter, what kind of a leader do you think you'll be? Peter, what kind of programs did you gather up to implement for the church? How are you going to get people into my church? He never asked him any of those things. He asked him one question. He said, Peter, do you love me? What does Jesus want from us? Does he want our church attendance? Or does he want us to love him more than anything else? Does he want our offerings? Or does he want us to love him more than anything else? Does he want our prayers? Or does he want us to love him more than anything else? Does he want our rituals, our traditions? Or does he want us to love him more than anything or anyone else? You know, unfortunately, we can't properly love him if we haven't caught a glimpse of how incredibly glorious he is. But once we do, once we catch a sighting of Jesus Christ in all of his glory, then we will gladly exchange our dusty rites and rituals, our worn-out traditions, and our religious narrow-mindedness for the joy of becoming a walking, breathing, holy, committed follower of Christ. You know, today and in the weeks to come, I want to present Christ to you in such a way that you can't help but love him. That you can't help but fall before him and offer him your undying devotion. Not out of guilt, not out of duty, not out of obligation, not out of fear, but because your heart has been captured by him. Everything else pleasing to God will flow from that kind of love. Sometimes we get so steeped in our busyness and in our doing of church that we end up like the church at Ephesus when John writes or delivers the letter to it as book of Revelation. We've forgotten our first love. The principle is simple. We love him because he first loved us. But how are we to live our lives as followers of Christ? Well, John tells us, as he, Jesus, is, so are we in this world. You know, the Bible just doesn't promise us eternal life. It also gives us the gift of life lived through Jesus Christ. You know, so often we're blinded by the future of eternity that we get so fixed on John 3:16 that our mind's eye leaves here and goes to heaven, and we forget that we are to be living epistles in the present. We are to be living letters from Jesus to this world. We're to be living love letters from God. You know, obviously, neither one sermon nor a lifetime of them can encompass all of who Jesus is or what he means. But I hope that this series will birth in your life a new desire of wonder and insight into the earthly, the exalted, and the indwelling Jesus. But even more, I hope that you'll be compelled to respond to the love that he has poured out upon us, and that you'll become a living letter of Christ in your marriage, a living letter of Christ in your family, a living letter of Christ in your friendships, in your employment, and in this community. I hope that after you catch a glimpse of the glory of Christ, your life will be God's love letter to the world. The center and circumference of the Christian life is none other than the person of Jesus Christ. All other things, even religious things, are eclipsed by the sight of his matchless worth. You know, in our galaxy, God has put something there to demonstrate what Christ is to us. It's called the sun. And without it, no life can exist on earth. We are dependent upon the sun for everything. Just as the sun is the center of our solar system, Jesus is the centerpiece of God's universe. And he is to be the centerpiece of our lives. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote that Jesus is the center of human existence, of history, and the center between God and nature. British author H.G. Wells remarked, "I am a historian. I am not a believer, but I must confess as a historian that this penniless preacher from Nazareth is irrevocably the very center of human history. Jesus Christ is easily the most dominant figure in all history. Since all nature and all history have Christ at its center, then his people should allow him to take his rightful place at the center of their lives. That only makes sense. Yet Jesus just isn't found at the center. He's also found in the corners and on the edges. Jesus is not just the Lord of the middle. He's also the Lord of the margins. He's the God of the whole thing. He's the bright and morning star who gives light to all that exists. He shines into whatever gloom there is. He shines into the shadows. He shines into the creases and the crevices. His brightness permeates the darkest places of the human soul. And for this reason, knowing Christ, really knowing him profoundly and in reality, intimately, is the first pursuit of the Christian life. He wants us to know him. We are called into the fellowship of God's Son. When Christ is not central and supreme in our lives, everything about life shifts out of orbit. everything moves out of kilter. So for Christians, our first task is to know Christ. Not just know about it, not just be able to sing songs about it, but to know Him. Not just to say that we know Him, not just to think that we know Him, not just to assume because we go to church that we know Him, but to really know Him. We are to have that intimate, life-changing love relationship with Jesus Christ. And out of that kind of knowing, we will come to love Him. We will come to talk about Him. We will come to live for Him. And we will come to manifest Him in our lives. What is Christianity? Christianity is Jesus Christ. Nothing more, nothing less. Who do you say? Jesus asks that I am. So join me on this journey as we learn together more about this uncontainable person who is both God and man. Jesus. We're going to stand and sing our hymn of invitation this morning. If you need to make a decision for Christ, you can come as we sing. Put your faith in Him, repent of your sins, and buried with Him in baptism.